Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another podcast episode. My name is Alicia Gogan, the host of the Globe Secrets podcast, where I help you expand your mind and become more self-aware so that you can glow up into the best version of yourself. Hello and happy Sunday. That intro kind of winded me a little bit. I don't know why. I've been saying that intro for about 206 episodes. It's actually crazy, and I say it every single time. Anyways, how are we doing? I hope we are well. I'm so happy that we are here once again on a Sunday. Well, some of you guys are not listening to us Sunday, but some of you guys are religious in my episodes, and I love that. I love you guys. I love to see your comments. I love that we are here working on ourselves and we're doing it together. Now, we need to talk about not being so hard on ourselves. This is birthed from something I experienced this week, so I'm going to tie in a lot of my personal life experience like I usually do in this episode, and what to really do and the mindset shifts that I like to have when I find I am getting really hard on myself to the point where I feel like my self-improvement is kind of becoming a little bit toxic, to the point where I am catching myself feeling like I always need to be working on something and things aren't changing. And I would like to say that this is a pretty good segue from last week's episode where I talked about what to do when life feels unfinished and messy and you feel like you're really not getting where you need to be. So the other day there was this influencer event that I really wanted to go to. I had it in my calendar for a while and I wanted to go to it. Now, as an influencer, I don't need to go to these events. I've actually really stopped going to many events, being somebody who's done this full time for going on to my third year, I believe, fourth almost year in this space, because for one, I'm not like the biggest lifestyle influencer, right? So like I'm not always super interested in going to events where it's all about the products, the hair, skin, everything. Like it's kind of cool to go here and there. And I did that the first year that I moved down to the city and I was this influencer and this, that. I also have a YouTube channel, second channel, by the way, if anyone is new and watching on the podcast channel on YouTube. So like I talk a lot about health, wellness, things like that, and on my Instagram as well. But anyways, I get invited to a lot of those events. A lot of them I don't go to because I'm honestly just busy with other things. Like I feel like what I am working on, but also just what I do for my work is just bigger than going to events sometimes, and products, and being a lifestyle influencer. Like I love that kind of stuff and I like the wellness, I like the light stuff, but I am a very deep person and the work that I am doing is going to be far beyond, just being like a get ready with me influencer. No shade to the get ready with me influencers, okay? We love you girls. I digress. Anyways, I wanted to go to this event. I haven't gone in a while, and leading up to that day, I was super down, and then the day came and it was a really gloomy day and the weather was not good. It was like really cold. It was like one of the colder days after having really, really hot days in the city, and the weather does absolutely affect my mood, and I try not to let it, especially in the summertime. I feel like it's different than in the wintertime. I try not to let it, but it definitely was, and I was in the midst of my luteal phase, like genuinely, like not good weather and being in your luteal phase and just really having that low energy, maybe not having the best sleep, and juggling a lot of things that are probably also more important than, let's say for this instance, the influencer event. It was a kind of like a recipe for disaster. And I just felt like I am somebody who very much so goes with the flow of my body, the flow of nature and life and this, that, and I have to adapt and whatever. And really try to deconstruct this way of moving through life where it's like a lot of force energy, like forcing things that I don't feel like doing, that aren't aligned. And on one hand, that's great and it's beautiful and it's really healthy and it's helped me heal a lot. The other hand is we still need to do the things that might, be uncomfortable. But with this particular circumstance, I really did not need to go, and I did not need to also feel bad about myself for like not going. And there were actually pretty valid reasons as to why it wasn't the vibe of going, and it was like at this like outdoor like beach club vibe anyway, and it just wasn't really the day. It just was not the day. And the whole day I'm like sitting there and I don't want to go and I'm resisting it and I'm going back and forth and I'm feeling like shit, and I'm also just like mentally ruining my entire day because I'm not like making a decision because I feel bad for not going, but then should I go and this, that. And by the way, like nobody's like standing there like waiting for Alicia Gogan to walk into the building, okay? Like I am not like this important influencer that needs to go to this thing. Like it's totally fine. Many people cancel, but That was kind of what was happening in my head. And then I just realized I was getting so hard on myself because I knew I was probably going to not go. But regardless, I was being so hard on myself for not showing up and like just being super ready to go do this event and do this thing. And I think there's room for kind of getting mad at yourself a little bit for being like, girl, like you said, you're going to do this, you should do it, you know, like holding yourself accountable. But it was this really not nice energy that I was holding to myself for not really any reason. And I had to come to Jesus moment again this week or that week. And I was like, you know what? Like, for one, we're not going. Okay. So like I decided I wasn't going, but also you're being like way too hard on yourself and it's not necessary. And three, I guess, you have actually done so much this week that you are forgetting, like you actually are moving through life right now, Alicia. Like you are somebody who does absolutely nothing with their lives and is just an absolute bum and doesn't do shit. And I had to sit there and really remind myself of the things that I accomplished that week. And I was like, whoa, like if I'm not careful and if I don't check myself, my toxic self-improvement side of me, that part of me that always wants to keep going, can really just blind me and really take me into this dark energy that I do not even need to be in. I didn't even need to be in there. And the constant back and forth that I was spending time stressing about in my head that day made me so far away from the realization of the things that I did accomplish that week. And I'm just going to list some things that I actually did. One was I got myself out of like a little mini feeling like a little bit of a rut on that Monday. And this is kind of more like the luteal phase-ish of my life. Sometimes I can get like this. Pulled myself out. I was so happy with how that day ended up being. And then the next day I ended up, from last week's episode, if you remember, I was having to do this thing that was uncomfortable for me. It was like filming in public for this brand deal thing that I was doing, and I was like changing my mindset about that. Anyways, I ended up doing that, and it was such a great day, guys. It was so good. I felt so happy that I like pushed myself and I changed my mindset about things. And by the way, I made a really good connection with somebody who was on that team, and that led to other things. So that's like, you know, maybe like a side note of just how your energy and your mindset can change things and create more abundance for you. But that day went so well. I also recorded like extra stuff that day because I was feeling so aligned and so good. And then the next day after that, I was really, really productive. And on top of that, like I've been working on certain habits when it comes to health and wellness. Like I'm waking up around like 6 a.m., taking my dog for a walk. I'm training my dog. I'm doing all these things. I have my relationship. I'm seeing my friends. I'm doing all these things, mind you, like healing from all the shit that I went through in the wintertime. Like I am doing literally so much and so many good things. But in that moment, I was so focused on, I'm just not doing this thing, which really like didn't even really matter. And I was forgetting all of the great things that I was doing, and it was making me feel like absolute shit. And so for anyone who might be feeling right now that they're not doing enough, or you always feel like you're falling short, or you're hard on yourself a lot, like you're really hard on yourself, even though you've probably done a million things, you just are forgetting all of those things you're doing, whatever it is, you need to understand that we as humans seriously underestimate how long it even takes to change a habit or do something successful, such as, let's say, get out of your comfort zone of something that you've been saying that you want to do for so long. Or even when it comes to that episode I was talking about when it comes to gardening, aka like smoking marijuana, how much time that actually can take for you to really pull away from that habit and pull away from you being reliant on that thing. And, you know, the moment that we have a quote unquote slip up in our brains, you know, when we don't feel like we're doing enough or we didn't do it perfectly, like we get so hard on ourselves as if it doesn't take so long to change these habits. Like it takes a while, and sometimes there's going to be the messiness of life and things aren't going to go perfectly, but also like, you should be so proud of yourself for how far you've even come, because things take time and we really just underestimate that time and we just undervalue it, and we do not give ourselves props. We do not give ourselves this congratulations of these small little steps that we make because we are so focused on the wrong things. And I want to talk about some of those things and, you know, really get ourselves back to the core of who we are, which is whole and lovable, and we don't need to be acting out of fear and stress to begin with, and how society and many things that have been taught to us and put on us has made us forget, and we operate out of fear and scarcity, and we don't need to be doing that. And that first thing is to really remember that you are not failing, you are actually healing. And what I mean healing could simply be like the day that I was stressing about the event and me not going and this, that, and I was overwhelmed and this, that, like I'm in the process of working on other things, right? My habits and pushing myself out of comfort zones that week per se. All of those things were me healing, me growing, me changing and evolving. I'm on this process of healing right now. So I should be very gentle. I should be more loving and a little bit more understanding. And when I don't have that 100% capacity to show up, I don't need to think that I'm failing or I'm doing things wrong. It's just life. It's just who I am. It's just what happens. There are times you're going to quote unquote fall short, but that is okay. We have to create room for that. Now, last night I was scrolling on Pinterest, and I love my Pinterest quotes. You guys know if you've been rocking with me for a while. I just find the best ones, probably because my feed is curated based off of the things that I really know to be true deep down, and that gets reflected out into your life and even on social media. But I always find some good quotes, okay? And I read this quote, I'm going to read it, but I don't know exactly the context in which this was made for, but I actually want to go through it because I think that it can help me explain where this us being hard on ourselves can be coming from. And there's many ways. You guys know I always talk about childhood and, parents or caregivers or, societal systems are put in place for us to constantly just keep stressing and feeling like we need to do more. Yes, but I want to kind of like break them down. So this quote says, "The 7 veils of illusion." And it says separation, scarcity, control, unworthiness, time, fear, and death. So I want to run through some of these and give you kind of like my commentary on it. And so the first one says separation. And I think that when we are being hard on ourselves and we're going back into that toxic self-improvement and we're feeling like we're just not good enough, I really believe that this is coming from a place of us being separated from our innate worthiness and wholeness that we have come to this earth with as a baby. But then unfortunately, when we grow up, people's limiting beliefs, parents, trauma, systems, everything gets placed on us, and now we feel like we need to do, be more, act, have more. We don't have enough. I need to change this, that, and the third. But we are also separated from just the relationship that we can have with ourselves. And I think that's so important when you feel like you're not doing enough and you're being hard on yourself. And I even say this in the sense of even just like having a morning journal practice, because I feel like when you do, and for me, when I have this relationship with myself where I'm checking in with myself, I'm having a journal practice, I'm working on my mental health, I'm slowing things down, it's actually pretty easy for me to come to the realization that all of these thoughts that I'm having are based out of fear and lack, and they're not serving me, and I don't need to listen to them. And my higher self knows that this is bullshit and I need to slow down, and I need to remind myself of what I have accomplished and how good I am and all those things. And that's what I did when I realized I was like going into this spiral of anxiety that day. And I'm like, I need to come back to myself right now, because I am letting, and I don't know, everyone has their ways of thinking of what this like energy could be, like dark energy, evil energy, whatever it is, devilish energy. It's like it has me wrapped up in all of their limiting beliefs and that negativity. And it's not true. That's not me. I didn't come here not worthy. And so I think it's so important that you do cultivate a relationship with yourself. But I will talk about something that you can journal on at the end of this episode. Actually, one last thing I will say about separation. This also could be looked at in the sense of being separated from others. I feel like when you're really isolated and you do everything for yourself and by yourself, maybe because you had to, but when you're in that state, and I know that because I've been like that all my life, and it's been really challenging for me to have healthy relationship. Not anymore. I've really worked on it, but in my past, trust people, trust that they're going to show up, all of that stuff, you can really become a stressed out individual and always feel like you're not doing enough, because you actually don't even have healthy people around you to be like, hey, you are doing enough, or hey, I can help you. Like, you being connected with healthy people, of course, can really help you slow down and believe that you're doing enough. Like, I even think about my boyfriend. He is always just constantly like celebrating the small things that I kind of just like push away. And I'm just like, yeah, on to the next thing or whatever. Like, even my friends too, like, people will come to me and be like, you have done so much for people and your work is incredibly impactful, or your book, or everything that you've done and all of these things. But I'm just so numb to it sometimes, and I'm just so like used to just not really like, okay, on to the next thing, that I don't even see it. But when I have people, when I'm not separated from others, when I'm not separated from love, then I can actually see I am whole. I am good enough. I actually don't need to be doing so much. I am enough. That's what I'll say about separation. Next thing it says is scarcity. Of course, when you are feeling like I'm not doing enough, I need to do more, this, that, you are operating out of scarcity. You are operating out of a belief system that thinks I need to do more to be loved, to be valued, to even have more money. And on one hand, yes, you need to do certain things to get money, right? You need to do certain things to be valued in life. That's kind of how it is. And also, you need to do things for others so other people will also do things for you. Like, but not in a toxic way. It's just that's just kind of how things are, and that's totally fine. But I do think sometimes we are constantly being bombarded by things online and even in real life where it's just like you need to work hard, you need to do more, and it's still not going to be enough. And that belief system really can get in your head and push you to continuously keep doing more. But the truth really is there actually is an abundance of love to be had and to be given, money to be had, to be given, and resources and a lot of things, but we only see what we are operating out of. So if you have that belief system of lack, I am in danger, and there's not enough, you will only seek evidence to prove to yourself right about your belief system, and you will be in this perpetual negative feedback loop. And I've been there, and I'm not saying the world is all butterflies and roses. Definitely not right now in today's world, and people need to wake up. People need to wake up. But you also need to wake up to the fact that there is a lot of good. And when you do have that mindset, you can create more resources, more abundance, more healing in this world that can also help others as well. So that's all I'll say on the scarcity, but it definitely can be coming from the scarcity mindset when you're constantly feeling like you got to do more and self-improvement and not good enough and yada, yada, yada. Next is control. The thing is with control is this: we have a lot more control over the way we perceive things and our mindsets and our positive or negative mindsets about things, and whether we're going to continue forward, we're going to have good beliefs and this, that, but we don't necessarily always have control over the things that are happening, just how we are going to interact with these things. And I think the illusion that really hits us sometimes from that dark energy, maybe if you want to believe in that, is that we can control every outcome. And when we do that, we actually stress ourselves out even more. And I'm going to bring it back to that event. I couldn't control really how that day went. Okay, you know what? The weather was the weather. My hormones were my hormones, and there were other like small things that just were playing a role in that. And I could really go against that. But if I continue to fight against that, I would just be fighting myself and stressing myself out more. And the moment that I release some of that perfectionism, because that's really what that control feeds into, once I released that, things opened up so beautifully for me. I felt so much lighter. And when I am not stressed, when I am not feeling like I need to control things work out so much better. I'm clear-minded, so I think differently, I move differently, I act differently. During that day, not only did I go into that mindset of like, oh my gosh, look at all the things that I did do, that also spiraled me into doing other things in that day. It wasn't like I sat around, did nothing. I actually was really productive in other beautiful ways. And I got so many things done from this place of alignment that like me going to that event, when I looked at it the next day, I'm like, girl, like that was actually ridiculous, but it was a lesson. But anyways, control is definitely an illusion, and we need to remind ourselves of that. The next thing on that list was unworthiness, which I kind of already talked about, but you know, this can really keep us stuck and sick and depressed and just not living a good quality life. And I think that this is another thing that infiltrates our minds through social media, through people above us, people in systems everywhere. If we're not careful and we don't wake up, that, we are just inherently not good and we need to change and we need to do more and we need to be better and just do more. And it's just a rat race. It's a never-ending thing when you are operating out of this feeling of unworthiness. And it's not to say that we don't do more and be better as humans or even want to make more money or hit goals, but you want to do it from the place of, this is aligned to me. I want to do these things. I am good enough where I am, but I want to improve, not thinking that you have to, or it's life or death, have to, or I will never get love. No, we don't want to operate from that place, because when we do some crazy shit. We change ourselves in really unhealthy ways. We overwork ourselves in really unhealthy ways, and that leads to us just self-destructing, essentially. The next thing is time. Always believing that we don't have enough time can really bring us into that burnout energy, essentially. And I always remind myself when I feel like I'm rushing through life, or I'm feeling like I have to get things done and this, that, which again, like, life is life. We're not always going to get all these things done. I said it in last week's episode. Life will always be lifing and things will be unfinished, and we need to be more comfortable with that. We need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. But really, when we're rushing, all we're doing is we're rushing to the finish line, which is death. So I'm always trying to remind myself, like, are you trying to really like speed up the process with that? Because I'm not actually trying to do that. And it's so crazy because we have a part of ourselves that's convinced that if we keep going faster, quicker, do more, we're going to stay safe, because that's what it believes, that all of these things will keep us safe. If we do more, if we're better, if we're valued more, if we're loved more, if we have more money, all these things keep us safe. And yeah, that's partly true, but if we do that too much, where's that going to bring us? To unsafety, aka being depressed, sad, not fulfilled in life because we've maybe taken the wrong route, coping because we are so stressed. And where does that lead us? That leads us to death. That leads us to an unfulfilled life. The next thing that it says is fear, which again, like, this kind of all correlates, right? When you are in this energy of being hard on yourself and I'm not doing enough, you're really operating from fear, not love. And I talked about this in a few episodes in the tail end of winter into spring, where if you really just think about it, we as humans operate from two places: fear or love. When you're operating from a place of fear, you're doing things like overworking yourself or getting into the wrong relationships because you're afraid that if not, then you won't be loved. Like, you're doing a lot of things that might not actually serve you or serve others. Even people who are harming other people deep down, yes, they're mentally not okay, but there's fear within those emotions as well, yada, yada. So there's fear or there's love. And when you operate out of a place of love, you typically do things for the betterment of society. You do things for yourself in a way that's nurturing and loving and understanding and more compassionate. And so always asking yourself, when you're doing certain habits, am I doing this out of a place of fear or love? When you're self-sabotaging, when you're overeating, when you're not taking care of yourself, where is this coming from? And when it comes to overworking and feeling like you're not doing enough, that's really your survival mode getting activated, right? So there's this sense of feeling like I'm afraid, I need to protect myself, I need to go. Where is that coming from? A lot of the times it's the way we were brought up, it's trauma, it's the belief systems that we hold, but understanding that the way you are actually going to be safe is not going to be from operating out of survival mode the way you have been. It's not to say that you don't want to have those instincts and you don't want to protect yourself. Absolutely. Every emotion, every system that we have serves a purpose. But when you're constantly overworked, when you're going chronic in one area, that is not going to help you at all. And for the most part, that doesn't serve us anymore. So when you are telling yourself, I'm not doing good enough, I am a bad person because I'm not hitting these goals, or I should be doing more, it's feeding into that unhealthy mindset of we must stay in fight or flight. And again, the journal prompts that I'm going to give you at the end of this episode will help with that as well. And then the last one is death. And I won't go too much into this. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll have more of not necessarily an opinion, but more content when it revolves like death and grieving and stuff. I mean, I'm obviously still in the grieving process when it comes to my mom, but I've been learning a lot about death and grieving, and I think it's actually quite instinctual, and it was easy for me to understand because of my life experience, probably even when it came to losing my mom. But I think that a lot of us do not understand death, and we are absolutely terrified of it. And I understand, and it's not to say that I'm not afraid of death in a way. Actually, I'm not really. But obviously I want to live. Like, I obviously like want to live this beautiful life and everything like that. And of course I would love to have my parents be here and anyone who I've lost. The perspective that I have is that life definitely goes on, and there will always be a transition, and there's reasons for why we come here and do the things that we do in terms of the legacies and the change that we make, and, you know, believing that there is like a higher power or God and he has a plan for us, all those things. So anyways, I'm not going to get into it, but I think that when you are not so afraid of that, afraid of death, and also you're able to handle grief, because that is literally a natural thing that we will all have to go through, whether it's people, places, or things we'll have to grieve. It can allow us to be really resilient and actually create an even more beautiful life, an even more meaningful life. We can see the lessons, we can see the wisdom, and we stop operating out of fear, because at the end of the day, that's really what we are doing, right? It all comes down to this instinctual want and need to stay alive. But when you fear death a little less, it's almost like you can actually live more, which is, again, an interesting thing to think about. So anyways, that was kind of deep, but I just read that quote and I was like, yeah, everything is connected. Really and truly everything is connected. Now, for one, before we go on to the next part, I do want to ask you guys, what are you currently fearing in your life? I would love to hear, whether it's in the comments, you can send me DMs, or even leave it on the Spotify page where you can leave comments in any area of these things that I talked about, even from like the quotes. I just kind of want to know, like, what are the big fears? It could be other things that I didn't talk about. I feel like a lot of women are afraid of aging, and also like children and marriage and relationships, like that kind of stuff, which I would really like to have those conversations as well on the podcast. I'm going into my 30th year, and I think that I've come around kind of a little bit on the other side when it comes to this rushing energy and feeling afraid of life. So I definitely would love to share that with you guys, but I'm also just interested in what you guys maybe are struggling with. So what do we do about this not feeling good enough, this fearful mindset that we have? Well, what we really need when we are afraid is we need to feel safe. And I talk on my podcast all the time about all the ways in which that we really need to look and deconstruct our lives to create more safety within them, right? It's everything from, yes, the systems that we live in and the environment that we are in and the financials and the parents and the relationships, the friendships, where we spend our time, what we are listening to, all of it, you know? And by the way, let's slow down here and understand that that will be a lifelong process, and that is okay. And you can still feel safe, and you can still have a better quality of life, even if all these things are not in place. Coming from me and my story, that's how I've always kind of moved up and evolved. Is not everything is perfect, but I'm creating safety. I'm looking for safety. I'm doing the best that I can. And every single year is just better and better. But for this example and what I did when I was stressing about that event, we're going to talk about really focusing on your small wins, because doing this can really give you a sense of control, actually, in a way, and also to create a little bit more space and calmness in your life so that you're not on to the next thing as well. Because when you're on to the next thing and the next thing, I need to do this, I need to self-improve this, I'm good here and I just did this, but I could just tweak it a little bit more and I could just do a little bit more. No, that is creating more stress that you don't need. You're going back into that survival mechanism that you have, and you don't need to be there. So what you can do as a practice, and I'll write this little like journal prompt in the description, but You can sit down and honestly, like if you're really, really stressed, you can do this every morning or every night or when you are just like really, really stressed. But I do want to say that the more times that you make having a relationship with yourself a practice, you will feel better in your life and yourself and God or the universe or whatever you want to believe in. And I will talk about that as well. But the practice that you can do is naming what is enough right now. And if you struggle with even being able to discern whether something is enough or not, you can just simply write out all of the things that you've actually done or accomplished, whether it was that day or during the week or even the month. I sometimes like to do that if I feel really unaccomplished at the end of the day. But I do know that I didn't just sit around and do nothing, but sometimes I'll just feel like that. Like my brain just doesn't want to acknowledge anything. So I will write out, or sometimes I'll even say it out loud, but it is good to write all of the things that are enough and all the things that you have done. So for instance, for the event thing, I actually sat there and I was like, okay, well, what have I actually done this week? Because I did do a lot of things. And, Monday, getting out of that slump, I had 2 really productive days and that was not planned, which is good. I always feel so accomplished when I do that, when I move with my energy. I also did the brand deal thing and that led to another opportunity, which was beautiful. And then taking care of Theo, relationship, getting things done around my house, actually, my balcony, all of these things. And it's not to say that you doing this practice is going to change absolutely everything, but it will start to calm yourself down because you will see in front of you, you will be able to actually see the real evidence of you moving forward and you being safe and you doing these things. And I just think that we don't see that evidence enough. We are so on autopilot, and that autopilot thinking and that evidence is based on focusing on the things that we haven't done and making it so big, or just seeing all the things that are stressing us out or going wrong, and we're constantly focusing on that, which go listen to last week's episode if you really struggle with that as well. So doing this type of practice not only will help you in that moment and make you feel a little bit better, but also when you continuously do this and you have a practice of coming back to yourself and reminding yourself, I am worthy, I am good enough, I have accomplished enough, and you can list out the things that you've been doing or the things that you're working on, whatever it is, all of that kind of stuff will eventually rewire your brain. So you start to automatically start thinking about the fact that actually I am already doing enough naturally. And that's where I'm at as well. Like, not all the time am I in that energy of like the event thing. For most things, I can just like let it go and be like, it's not at this point, I've done enough work. We're not going to stress about the fact that I didn't get that thing done. My perfectionism is so much less than it used to be because I've just done these practices and I'm constantly pouring into myself anytime that I'm stressing, and usually every morning. Not every single morning am I perfect when it comes to journaling and stuff, but I can see an absolute complete difference in my mental health when I am sitting down and I'm writing out either the things that I am doing or enough, or again, just pouring into myself when it comes to affirmations. Or another thing you can do, and I think that this is a really beautiful method practice that I use all the time that you can implement in your daily life, but this doesn't have to be every day, but I think it could be helpful, is writing a letter to your inner child, aka the part of you that is in this fear-based response from a higher version of yourself. And you can think about this person being anyone, like it just, whatever's going to work for you. But you can think about a mother who is so unconditionally loving to their child, who accepts them, who can meet all of their needs, who shows up, who has the resources. You could also even think about it as like maybe your parents, whether they maybe were falling short about things, like thinking about how they actually would be if they had the resources and they didn't come from their own traumas and their own, upbringings and things like that. Sometimes I will think about it like that, but regardless, that parent, role model person, what would they say to you when you are in this mindset of wanting to be controlling, or you're afraid, or you're scared, or you're anxious? And writing to yourself, writing to that part of yourself, or from your higher self even. And you know what? Some people will connect with God in this way. So obviously it's not like you're playing God, but it's just like you going into prayer, or you having this, in my personal opinion, truth that we all can tap into if we slow down and we take a moment and connect to it, of the fact that we are inherently already worthy. We are whole. We are loved. And we need to remind ourselves of these things so that we stop operating from such places and bringing it back to finding those cues of safety, reminding yourself of the things that you have accomplished, but also going into gratitude, going into the things that are working well in your life. And I think we need to do more of this. And this is something that's really helped me. And it's gotten my mindset to a place of feeling more stable. And yes, there's other things that you can do when it comes to regulating your nervous system and feeling safe, somatic work, breath work, meditation, things like that. But I'm talking about things where we get in our heads a lot, and we do need to remind ourselves of these things when it comes to writing or speaking to ourselves, affirmations. And some of the things that my higher self or even my mother, like genuinely, this is how my mom was, so I have this voice ingrained in me as well. And that higher consciousness would say things like, trust the timing of your life. Everything will work out exactly the way that it is meant to. Trust God's timing, trust God's plan. And actually, I saw this quote on, I don't know if it was Instagram or Pinterest, where it said something about slowness is divine timing or something. And I'm pretty sure I posted it on the YouTube community tab page as well. And it's really like sometimes slowness and things taking time is such a blessing. And we just forget that. We think everything should take 2 seconds and we should get it now. And if it's not changing and we don't see the evidence, then it's not working and we stress out, and we don't need to. We have to remind ourselves that things, actually, some of the best things in life take time, and they need to take time. You need time to see what you like and what you don't like when it comes to relationships, which means sometimes you might have to go through the phases of like dating the wrong people, or, not living in the right state, or working shitty jobs. And then you figure out, actually, I want to do this thing and not that thing. Like there's many jobs that I didn't love, but I learned to find the lessons in those jobs. And then that allowed me to actually get closer to what I actually was meant to do in this world. And I continue to do that and to follow what feels good. But I can't do that when my mind is clouded with this negative self-talk and this scarcity, and that I need to do more and quicker and faster, and I'm not good enough the way that I am. Like, of course, I'm going to bring myself into hot water when I'm thinking those things. And actually, one thing I did say in one of those episodes, like from spring, end of winter, like I was saying, was from this book called A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. I love her. And she was saying in the book how fear speaks loud and first. So when you are having thoughts in your head, a lot of the time, especially if you come from like limiting beliefs and things like that, what's going to come up first is the fearful thought, is the limiting belief, is the thing that doesn't serve you. It speaks loud and it speaks first. So we want to take a moment to really dissect these thoughts that we have and the things that we're telling ourselves, the stories that we're telling ourselves, by having journal practices, by redirecting our minds, because it's very detrimental for us to be acting on these fear-based thoughts. And when we go underneath that, we do find the truth of what is real about ourselves, which is that we actually are lovable, but maybe we just grew up in environments where we were taught we were opposite of that, or we actually are doing a lot of things, but we are so focused on the things that aren't going right that we don't even see all the things that we are accomplishing and that we are doing, or we're doing so much comparison or judgment when really we should be just focusing on our own water, our own lives, and pouring into ourselves. And when we do more of that, and when we operate more out of love, we actually are okay. We actually don't need to keep doing more and being more, and we heal. We heal physically, mentally, and emotionally when we slow it down and we stopped acting, but also listening to the thoughts that come first, which a lot of the times those first thoughts will be those fear-based thoughts and those beliefs. And maybe I can make an episode on things that will keep you asleep and keep you stuck and keep you in this illusion. I can talk about some of the things that I've had to kind of get rid of in my life in order for me to stay centered with myself, stay connected to God, the universe, all of that higher power, things that are bigger than me, and what is true about this life and this world, and that keep me sane and keep me on a good path. So I can talk more about that, so let me know. But I hope this helped in some way. My everything is basically going to die, so I need to get off the podcast soon. But I just think that we really need to put in the work to redirect our minds, come back to the truth, Am I really not doing enough? Is this event that I didn't go to, is this really the end of the world? And do I need to work myself up and ruin my whole day because I'm not going and I feel like shame and I'm the worst person and this, that? No, it's not. It's not what God wants for me. It's not even what's best for society, for me to constantly be operating out of fear and being sick and being depressed and being sad and being fearful and having anxiety. Like all of those things, it's not serving not only myself but others. And so I'm going to do what I need to do to get further away from operating out of those places, like scarcity, like unworthiness, because it's not the truth. But it's going to be up to you to continuously remind yourself of these things by doing practices in the morning, connecting to yourself, connecting to God, listening to podcasts, getting out of your own way and reminding yourself of your worth. Because realistically, even the people around you who are good, who can remind you, sometimes those fear-based thoughts and that programming is so ingrained in you that you can't even see it and you won't even believe it. So you need to convince yourself of that first. So anyways, also last thing I'm going to do is show you Theo. He's so like asleep right now and like not interested, but guys, he's so big now. Like he's literally huge. Okay. Anyways, if you want to see him, then you can just follow my Instagram. He's so tired, but he's growing so much. He's almost like 7 months, guys. Like I can't even believe this. What a gem. He's an Italian Greyhound for anyone who is new. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.